Chevre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy, physically and spiritually. Today is Chov Dal Tevis, the Yom Elul Yortzeit of the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe. And I want to say in the merit of the Alter Rebbe, the schus from the Baal Yom Elul should be pale, Yeshua's Bekerev Ha'aretz, that any Jew that needs to be helped in any way whatsoever should be helped in the merit of the Alter Rebbe. We have to discuss today, it's Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parshas Shemos, the connection between Chov Dal Tevis, the Alter Rebbe, and the Parsha, being that we're now, as we were in the last couple of weeks, in the middle of a war. Our hearts and minds with our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael. So we're adding for tzedakah, G'dei tzedakah shemakareves esagula. May the merit of this tzedakah bring Mashiach now. And everyone should be healthy, the soldiers and the hostages should return home safely. We're going to say a prayer now. We're in a situation of Eis Tzori Yaakov. Yancha dinei b'im tzoro yisagev choshem Yaakov. May Hashem answer you on the day of distress. May the name of Hashem, may the name of the Hashem of Yaakov fortify you. Amen. I can think of no better parsha that's more accurate in describing the situation that we're in right now. And the message, what I'm going to speak today, is primarily a Sicha the Rebbe in Chelik Chavav Shmois Gimel, but also connected with Beis. It's based on that, but we're going to add something, and I hope it's going to be oizgalt and correct. So, in the parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu, after he has the revelation of the burning bush, we'll rewind to that later in Mirz Hashem if there's time. Then there's a whole dialogue between him and Hashem about him being chosen as the Redeemer. And then it says they're arguing. Moshe Rabbeinu is arguing with Hashem back and forth. And then it says, when it come to the Yidden, that I was chosen, I was sent from Hashem to be the Redeemer, and they're going to ask me, Ma Shmei, what is Hashem's name? What will I say to them? You should tell them, I shall be what I shall be. And that's what you tell the Yidden, that Shlachani Aleichem. That's the name that sent me. And then the pasuk says, "Vayomer oida likim al Moshe." Then they wish to add it to that. Koi soimer al bnei Yisrael, Hashem lekav Yisechem lekav Ram lekitzkel leKayaakov shlachani aleichem. Zeh shmi la'olam zeh zichi l'dei v'dei. So the Rebbe asks over here, and this is taken from a very famous Farbrengen. I wasn't there, but people that were there say it was unforgettable. Shmois, Tovshin Mem Gimel. The Rebbe spoke this talk, and the Rebbe was sobbing, and the Rebbe put his head on the table. And this is when the Rebbe gave the explanation. First, the Rebbe asked a couple of questions. First of all, what does it mean over here that Moshe Rabbeinu is saying that they're going to ask, what's your name? It's not going to be important to them what's your name. If you're in prison and you're in torture and you're in hell, and then someone comes along and is ready to take you out of the dungeon, you're going to say, Ma Shmei, who sent you? What do you mean? As long as the wizard comes along and performs the magic, so to speak, that's what counts. You're alleviating the pain. So why would you think, why is this relevant over here all of a sudden that the Yidden are going to ask Ma Shmei? And what exactly is the response? Oh, now that we have the answer of this name, which maybe doesn't say anywhere else, now there was this question, I got this answer, even though Hashem has many other names, but over here there's a unique name that tells us some special message. What was the question? What's the answer? And then we have to also understand, what does the pasuk continue? What is the Eibush to continue over here? That this was still not enough, and therefore he has to add, the Eibush has to add, and then he actually adds Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is not Eker. Koi Seimer al Bnei Yisrael, Hashem Alekei Avisechem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and Zeh Shmi La'olam, Zeh Zichi L'dei V'dei. So the Rebbe over here says, and then the Rebbe asks a couple of questions, and also, didn't they know already a couple of names before? Like, what's unique over here? All of a sudden, they get, if it's a name that they know already, so they know already the name, what are they going to be told now something new? Anyways, the Rebbe answers that this was not a question about knowing a name. This was a question about the nature of Hashem. The Eibishter is called Lefi Maisav. And if the Eibishter is the Father, and we are his children, so where were you till now? A glicket me getroffen. Now you show up. And the Rebbe screamed at the Farbrengen, as Pare botzach in Yiddish blood. It says the Pare bathed in the blood of Jewish children. So the Yidden are hundreds of years in concentration camp, Pisay and Ramses. And you show up now and tell us that you're the Redeemer? What sort of Eibishter is this? Mashmoi. There's a joke they say, what happens if a Lubavitcher marries a Litvak? You get a Mashiach that shows up in time. In other words, the message to Moshe Rabbeinu is, there seems to be too little, too late. Rahman al-Islam. The Yidden are so crushed, so decimated, so destroyed, and they're in pain and anguish, and they're crying out. What took so long? They say there's a word that there was a rabbi once talking to an atheist, and the rabbi was having a whole discussion with him about the Eibishter. And the rabbi tells this atheist, you know what? I don't believe in the God that you don't believe in either. In other words, for whatever reason, the Yiddishkeit that was presented to this person was so oppressive, so suffocating, so distressful, that we understand why he doesn't believe in the Eibishter. Somebody presented him a Judaism which was full of rules and regulations and restrictions. And they took out the whole love, the whole warmth, the whole life of Yiddishkeit. So how could he believe in the Eibishter? So the rabbi tells this person, you know, the Eibishter you don't believe in, I don't believe in either. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu is turning to Hashem. I'm coming along now, after hundreds of years of Golus, and telling them, hello, I'm here, finally. And that was the question, Mashmoi. What's the nature? What attribute, from what channel is the Eibishter now coming over here and acting in such a way? And the answer is Eya Shereya. We'll soon explain. And Rashi says over here, the only answer. And that's why this is so important. Because this is the answer to everything that's going on right now, till this very day, and the situation that's in Gaza. That the first thing is, you have to realize, like Rashi says in the words, Eya Asher Eya, Eya Imam B'tzara Zois. Asher Eya Imam B'shibut Shamalchis. And Rashi explains that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't going to tell them about the Shibut Shamalchis, but the answer was going to be Eya. In andere Wörter, I'm there with you. In andere Wörter, der Eibishter von Yiddishkeit is an Eibishter. Azoi is the Inyan, whether you understand it or not. Nicht azoi wie the so-called concept of an Eibishter that has no feelings. Because if you say there's a feeling, that means it's a shinoi. Da sagt man, der Eibishter is imo yonochi betzara. He feels the same whip that you feel. Wie kann das sein? Sag Klotschkasche. Wie kann man sagen, bechol zaros am Leitzor? As geht auf Atzmus. Hast du Kasche? Aber der Eibishter Zami kill Yochel, that he has no agbolus whatsoever, that he could feel it, and at the same time he stays who he is. Nimm an him noise. You don't understand it? Azay is the Inyan. Bechol zaros am Leitzor. The Eibishter Zami Eibishter that's not indifferent, that's not aloof, that's not distant, but is there mamish. Hasheichenitam b'teich tamosam. The Eibishter is crying together with you. And I'm a feel I'm a kenzog azami vort. It hurts the Eibishter more than it hurts you. Because when it hurts you not mugmal to geben. weil du bist Bagballe. Aber man sagt, that it hurts the Eibishter bleak wohl. How can you say it hurts the Eibishter? He feels pain. Or does sagt man it does? Now, was hast du von them? Why does it make a difference? Now comes the second point. So first of all, you have to realize, yes, that's what makes a world of a difference. You know, sometimes when I think about myself, I think I mentioned this once before, you see a picture of a disaster. There's an earthquake, a hurricane, a house comes destroyed, and then you see people sitting and crying. And you think to yourself, if they don't believe in an Eibishter, what is your crying worth? I know it's pain, and therefore you're uncontrollably sobbing. But really, what difference does it make? Does it make a difference? Maschenken in Yiddishkeit, bei uns sagt man, als der Eibishter is counting all the tears. Wie steht in Gemara, wenn geht zu der Sharik Dimo. The gates of tears, the gates of crying, never close. Every single tear a Yid is shedding is being collected by the Eibishter. And he's also crying. Wie, also muss verstehen der Minion. But wait, there's more. You have to also know. And that's what the Eibishter continues. It's not only B'chol Tzarosam Leitzar. That you have to know the Eibishter is with you. And therefore, man muss sagen, that you understand that there's some plan over here, and the Eibishter feels the pain, aber was kann man tun? Aber was soll man tun wegen dem? How do I digest this? The next step is you have to know, and that's what the pasuk continues, where the Eibishter says, "Vayemer Edelikim," that it's come for Shem Havaya is Rachamen. You should know, Kol Ma'adav Rachman L'Tavo, that it's really Hashem's kindness. But the noch geht weiter the pasuk, Zeh Shmila Olam, v'Zeh Zichru Devader. And the Rebbe explains that Zeh Shmila Olam, like Rashi says, Chosavav Leimer Helimu Shalei Yikara Kichsovei. That the Eibishter made as Amin Meiser, that even though it's Rachamim, but it's not Begolui. And that's what it means, Zeh Shmila Olam. My name is eternal, but it means my name is concealed. The fact that it's coming from Hashem's mercy is at present concealed. But Mamela, what should I do about it? The answer is, cry out. And that's the next continuation of the pasuk. That means it's not pshat that we're saying it's concealed and access denied. No. We're saying that which means that right now, instead of saying Yud Kei Vav Kei, we say Adnai, but Adnai supplants Yud Kei Vav Kei, which means that through our saying Adnai, Nikra, we call out Havaya. Basically, Moshe Rabbeinu's answer to the Yidden is, number one, Hashem is with you. And here we learn the lesson of empathy, and this is what I want to talk about today, which is one of my favorite subjects, and I believe one of the most important concepts in Yiddishkeit and in life in general. So first let's talk about over here, the pasuk with Hashem. We see from Hashem, V'alachta b'drachav, that when somebody is suffering, when we're suffering, and imagine you had a parent, and you went to your parent and you told your parent you're suffering, your mother or your father, could they always help you? Not necessarily. But if they give you a hug and they cry together with you, it helps you. You feel empowered. You feel you can continue. There's somebody who cares. It makes a difference to somebody. Together, Yachad, Ninatzeach, etc. So this is the message. We're dealing with Hashem, who is infinite, and He tells you, I am there with you. Not Stam, I'm there with you. And indifferent. I'm there with you, crying with you, feeling the pain. How can we explain it? And here we'll talk about Eker Asher Eker for 2 seconds. Based upon what I learned in Chassidus and other places, Yesh Leima. What's the meaning of Eker Asher Eker? In a way, all the other Shemos of the Hashem are Hashem as he lowers himself, as he is defined, as he's doing a certain action. So it's a limitation. In other words, we're already attributing a certain definition which finds itself also in mundane. That's most of the names. Hashem as a leader, Hashem as a king, Hashem as a director, Hashem as a conductor, Hashem as a father, etc., etc. Those are all definitions that somehow, they're words that are in our dictionary, and we say that that's similar by the Eibishter, but by the Eibishter it's infinite. Even Shem Havaya, Yudke Vovke, and some definitions, let's say, for example, we say it means past, present, and future together, hoy year, but it's still a name which is connected to the concept of time. So it's still something which is connected and telling us it transcends time, but it has some connection to time. But if we translate the word Eker, I'm basing this upon what it says in Chassidus in other places about Shem Havaya, Havya Pshuta. Similarly over here, Eker Asher Eker means the only thing I can say about the Eibishter is, I shall be. What does that mean? All I'm saying about the Eibishter is that there's an Eibishter. I shall be. Anything more that I'm going to add to the words I shall be is already not talking about his essence. It's already a definition which is limiting. And maybe this is what it means over here. When Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Yidden, Eker Asher Eker, it's like Azeh is the Inyan. You know what it means if I'm saying that the Eibishter feels the pain of the whip, or the torture of Pisay Menamses, of the taskmasters whipping you, bone breaking, slave labor. How can I say the Eibishter feels it? Eker Asher Eker. Because we have no understanding. Any sort of definition that I'm going to say about Hashem means that I'm limiting him. Al derech the pasuk which says, Noira Sihilos, we can't even give him any praise. Any praise that we're going to talk about Hashem is a degradation. It's diminishing of his true infinity. You know what the ultimate infinity is? Nimnanim Nois. How can we say that Atzmos Amos is crying and feels the pain of the flesh being torn apart and the pain of suffering in Golos? The answer is Eker Asher Eker. I am what I am. We can understand it. But we're dealing with the Eibishter who has no definitions. He's not physical, he's not spiritual. He is what he is, and that's all you could say. And being that he is what he is, he could feel the pain, and at the same time, he's not limited by that whatsoever. But then, after we say that message, that Hashem is there with us, and therefore it makes a difference, then we say, but wait, there's more. Every single time you turn to Hashem, and you say Adnai, and you knock on the door, and you turn to him, Eilecha Hashem Ekra, the Eibishter is listening, and it makes a difference. And as it says even in this week's Pasha, by Yaakov Atal Shavos Amel Elikim Min Ha'avodah, we were groaning from the bondage and we cried out, and their cries rose up to Hashem. So therefore, we should know that it's coming from Rachmim. Really, it's Hashem's mercy. But we have to keep on crying Ad Mosai. We can't take it anymore. And that's the cry of Mashmoi. And that's the encouragement to the message. Don't give up. Turn to Hashem and say, we understand that it's coming from Rachmim. But could we please see it begilui? Even though we're told right now that there's a concept of Helem, we're asking to see begilui enough already. We should see the Chsodim Agluim now. And don't stop calling out to Hashem. V'zeh zichri. This is how we're meant to call out. Call out means to draw out. Now, This is what happens at the end of the dialogue with Moshe and Hashem. But before that comes something that I've spoken about. We've spoken about this many times. One of my favorite psukim of the Torah, that this whole story, before he gets the revelation of the snare, the pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu, after it says he was born, then the pasuk says, "Vayigdal Moshe vayetze el echa vayar b'savloisam." We just said now that what? When we say b'chol tzarasam lo tzar, that the Eibush says imo yanochi b'tzara, that's empathy. But wait, let's go back to the beginning of the dialogue, but let's go back before the story, and some of Farshim connect it, that it says by Shlishi, Pasuk Aleph, that Vayigdal Moshe grew up, Vayetze Lechav, he went out to his brothers, Vayar b'savloisam, and he saw their burdens. Some people have a word, Vayigdal Moshe, like Rashi says over here. Vayigdal doesn't only mean he just grew up. It says already before that he grew up. This was a leadership position. But really you could say even more than that. True greatness. What's the really sign of leadership and true greatness? That he went out of himself and gesehen andere Jeden als Brüder. Vayar b'savloisam. And Rashi says something over here so unbelievable, so fantastic, so important. And this, with these words, we see exactly what empathy is. Nosan eino v'liboy liyos meitzar aleim. From here we see that Moshe had to focus to feel the pain. He focused his eyes and heart to be distressed over them. There's a difference if we say sympathy or we say empathy. A person could be sympathetic to another person. You can even fake sympathy if you want. But empathy means it hits the spot. You identify. And it resonates to the point that you feel his distress. It's similar to what it says in Yom Yom, that when you're talking to a person and it alleviates some of your worries, so the Tzemach Tzedek said, Yisechenu la'acherim, speak to others, means only b'gufay, only in body. But shemuchodim itay, hanu shemagishim esinyanei. The only way you could really help another person is if you identify with that person. You have to speak to a friend who is actually listening, but not only sympathetically, but with empathy. Only the person who's listening with empathy will that person really make a difference to your situation and bring you benefit. It's not enough that you just are able to release it. No! You have to tell it to somebody, they feel for you. And then it'll bring benefit. So here we see, empathy is not automatic. It takes time. You know, sometimes you hear about somebody else's situation. That's not going to be enough. You have to actually walk in the other person's shoes. And it takes time. In a way of das. And like the Alter Rebbe explains das. Yitke machshavte bechoizik. Nosan eine v'liboy. My friends, this is not automatic. This is not just about being generous. This is not just about being kind. It means it's an actual exercise that takes time. Like we see from all the Rabbeim and the stories of Yechidus. Now not the time to get into it. It's already running late. And I want to bring out a point about the Alter Rebbe soon. But from these words itself that it says, Nosan eina v'liboy liyos meitzar aleim, we see that it means that it comes through effort. You have to involve yourself until it hits the spot. And then you experience empathy. And then, later on, after we see this that Moshe Rabbeinu was vayarbes of loisam, and you have to look up all the medrashim over there, what it says, that he went to what the Pisim Veramtses, he felt the sting of the whip, and he actually carried some of the load of his brothers. He wanted to actually experience what they were experiencing. So here was the Prince of Egypt, and he could have lived a life of luxury, but he went out to go share, to feel, to experience their experiences. And then later on, in the Parsha, Rabbi, where it starts talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, how he's going to be chosen. So first he was a shepherd, we spoke about this already before, but then comes the story that he saw the revelation of the snare. And over there, Rashi also says that what's the idea of the snare? So that means that Rashi over here mentions it twice. Why does Rashi mention it twice? But this is the beginning of the dialogue. First is the revelation of the snare, and then when he says Mashmoi, then the Eibusha tells him Eya, which means also that I'll be with him b'tzara. L'chayra, first there was the message to Moshe Rabbeinu as a leader, and if I remember correctly, this is the midah keneged midah, because he went out of his way. He did an act of ima enechi b'tzara, that he felt the pain. So then the Eibusha showed him the message of leadership, and of the Eibusha also himself saying that you are mechaven to the richtige zach, and that's why that's his first revelation, his first gilui elokus, divine communication with the Eibusha and encounter was this message, and it's the most important message. Imoi anoichi b'tzara, because that's the only thing we could say to the Jewish experience of oim dimaleinu l'chaliseinu, that imoi anoichi b'tzara. Until Mashiach comes, then we'll be able to say oitcha Hashem ki anaftabi. Then we'll be able to say thank you Hashem for whatever you did. But until that point in time, the one message which stands true and that we always have to know is imoi anoichi b'tzara. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu practiced empathy, Hashem practices empathy. He's there with us. There's many, many interpretations to what this message was of the burning bush. One message which is important for the survival of the Jewish people, that right away, so that shows on something miraculous. So it's a message about the survival of the Jewish people, the immortality of the Jewish nation, the laws of survival by the Jewish nation is not according to nature. Even though there'll be burning, and even though there'll be its thorns over there, but it's not going to become consumed. Like they say, down but not out. And this was the message. One of the messages that Moshe Rabbeinu has to know. There's going to be tzoros, Hashem Yirachem, but don't worry. Will never be out. Similar to what it says in this week's Parsha, Kashi Anu say, Ken Yirbe v'chen Yifritz. There's a very, very long story, which I'm not going to get into now because there's not enough time, because I want to get to the Alter Rebbe, where the Alter Rebbe, first, there's a very long story with the Alter Rebbe, was in a debate, and he was asked a question about the revelation of Chassidus, and he answered it based on a famous Torah of the Baal Shem Tov that he heard from the Maggid, that what the story over here is how Moshe Rabbeinu looked into the fiery bush, was the fire and the passion of the simple folk of the Jewish nation, which is another message that Moshe Rabbeinu has to have as a leader. He has to realize and see the beauty of every single Jew, and especially Jews that are not scholarly or academic, and their passion for Hashem never becomes abated, never becomes weakened. They're always crying out to Hashem. And that was the message that Baal Shem Tov said that Moshe Rabbeinu had to receive before he would be taking this role of leadership. He had to see the unbelievable virtue of the simple folk that are always on fire for Hashem. And when he says that I have to move aside the Sudan Mekal and Eskarav L'Sham, Moshe becomes humbled by this and says, since he sees how great the simple Jews are, that means I also have to change. I also have to shift position. So it's a long story. Probably I said it once before. Maybe we'll have to leave it for another time. In any case, we see in this week's Parsha twice. So in the beginning where there's the burning bush, and Moshe Rabbeinu is going to choose him as the Redeemer, Moshe Rabbeinu. So Rashi says, what does it mean, a burning bush? But then later, when Moshe tells Hashem Mashmoi, what should I tell the Yidden? So first it seems it was a message on a personal level. Moshe Rabbeinu's first revelation of divinity is this message that you always have to be with the people and have empathy. But then Hashem repeats it, which that is the message you have to give to Klal Yisrael. The whole Klal Yisrael is to always remember, I am with you, no matter what. Hashem feels the pain, as we spoke before at length. And now I just want to go to the Alter Rebbe. Really, this itself, what I'm going to say now, is another talk for itself. This Hayom with the Hayom says that this is the great Getliche F Ufte from the Alter Rebbe. This is the great accomplishment of the Alter Rebbe, that Chassidus Chabad, the Alter Rebbe accomplished, that the teacher is not alone and the student is not alone. And over here, it's a klotz kasha. What do you mean? Moshe Rabbeinu was separate from the people. Moshe Rabbeinu said that if Hashem doesn't forgive the Yidden, he'll say, erase me. Take me out of the Torah. Moshe's connection to every single Jew is an essential bond. And what about the Baal Shem Tov? The Baal Shem Tov, his whole life was Yidden. You're going to say he was separate from his students? So why is that we say that Dafka the Alter Rebbe, or Dosa the Great Get L'Chuvta, this is the great divine accomplishment of the Alter Rebbe, that the head of the yeshiva, the rabbi, the leader, the tzaddik, was not separate, and the disciple wasn't separate. See Yom Yom 22 of Iyar. So maybe you could say, and we could base it on what the Alter Rebbe says in Akdamas HaMalakit, in the compilers forward of the Tanya, which the whole compilers forward is about man's individuality, where the person asks, what about me? How do I find my place in the service of Hashem? So I'm not getting into it now, but the Alter Rebbe writes that the difference between this Sefer, Tanya, and every other Sefer is that I first had you in mind, then I wrote the Sefer. And he writes the following words, which is so amazing. He says that I wrote the Sefer having you in mind, and he says, and that's all of his followers, but it means all of Chassidim for the end of time. But first it started with Asher hoya hadibur shel chibo motzui beineinu, which means each and every one of our faithful who lives in our country, with whom words of affection have been frequently exchanged. V'gilu lefonai kol talumas libam u'moichem ba'avedas Hashem, and were revealed to me all the secrets of the heart and mind in the service of Hashem. So before he says that they revealed to him all the secrets of their hearts and mind in the service of Hashem, what does the Alter Rebbe write first? That hoya dibur shel chiba motzi b'neinu. That first there was words of affection exchanged. That means somebody went into Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe identified with this chassid. Was machst du? How are you? How's your wife? How's your children? How's Parnasa? Shahoya dibur shel chiba motzi b'neinu comes before before they were speaking about service of Hashem, which is spirituality, but they were talking about life itself. Connect. The Alter Rebbe connected with every one of his followers as a friend, and therefore that's what it means they weren't separate. Until the Alter Rebbe, when the tzaddik spoke to his followers, it was Momayla Lamata. He gave a message from Hashem, or a teaching that was relevant and that was important for everyone to hear. But the Alter Rebbe did a whole different thing. He went into your world first. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. He went into your blotter. He went into your mud. Hasheichen itam b'teich temasam. Nosan eina v'liboy liyos meitzer aleim imoim. He went into your world. He went into your reality. He put on your clothes. And he identified with your situation. And it resonated with him. And the chassid who went into Yechidus felt that no one else exists in the world except me. Right now, me and my life, me and my problems. And then, so this is the achlota we have to take from Chof Dal Tevis, from Parshas Shemos. We have to mirror Hashem's ways and Moshe Rabbeinu's ways. And remember, it's an avodah, nosan eina v'liboy liyos meitzer imoim aleim. The Eibush should help that if we will do what the Eibush is, go in the Eibush's ways, we'll start practicing empathy more and more. And the Eibush will see b'cheinu avinu kolone ke'echad. Yachad nenatzeach. The Alter Rebbe, we understood the Alter Rebbe, we connected the Alter Rebbe understands us. And we understand the Alter Rebbe. And that's the beauty of Tanya. You never feel like the Alter Rebbe is speaking to you as a right-wing fundamentalist preacher. You see, he's speaking to you as somebody who gets you. And the same way should be with us and our relations, with our friends, with our brothers, with anyone who turns to us. We should always feel that we get each other because we're like brothers. Vayetze el echov. U'brachenu avinu kolone ke'echad. In the schus of the Alter Rebbe, we should have the Gula Mitzvah Shleima take of Miad Mamish now. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.